Hello, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. So for today's discussion, we'll be having our lesson number 2 in reading and writing skills, evaluating text by analyzing claims. So what are the objectives of today's discussion? Number 1, to explain critical reading as looking for ways of thinking. Second, to identify claim of fact, fallacy, and value explicitly or implicitly made in a written text. And the last one is to write a 1,000 word critique of a selected text on the basis of its claim, context, and properties as a written material. Critical reading. Whenever you read something and you evaluate claims, seek definitions, judge information, demand proof, and question assumptions, you are thinking critically. This type of reading goes beyond possibly understanding a text because you process the author's words and make judgments after carefully considering the reading's message. But why should you read critically? Reading critically means you are thinking critically. This shows that you do not simply accept the message on the page. You bring to your reading your own experience and perspective and use this to separate yourself from the text and judge for yourself what you consider important, logical, or right. This interaction between the text and the reader is necessary because reading results from a negotiation of meaning between the text and the reader. By reading critically, you find out the author's views on something, ask questions, evaluate the strength and weaknesses of the author's argument, and also decide to agree or disagree with it. Thus, critical reading allows you to enter into a dialogue with the author, and this deepens your understanding of the issue or topic discussed. Okay, so as you can see, we have here the techniques to develop critical reading skills. For number 1, keeping a reading journal. Okay, so have you ever kept a diary? If you did, you must have felt free while expressing whatever was on your mind. This is because there are no rules in keeping a diary. You write for yourself. A reading journal is similar to keeping a diary, except you are writing your feelings and ideas in reaction to your reading assignment. This process allows you to develop your impressions of the text and connect them to your personal experiences. This allows you to better relate to the essay and understand the author's ideas. When keeping a reading journal, it is best to have a separate notebook for this purpose. Include the titles of the reading assignments you are responding to and add dates to your entries. Make it habit to read your entries so you can see how your ideas and writing have evolved. Keep in mind that your teacher and classmates may read your work, so only write about what you feel comfortable sharing. The next one is annotating the text. So, annotating the text simply means making notes on your copy of the reading. This includes highlighting, underlining important passages, and writing notes, comments, questions, and reactions on the margins. By doing this, you are entering into a dialogue with the author and not just passively reading the text. It is usually best to annotate the text after you have read it more than once to ensure that you understand it properly. Okay? Next, number 3 is outlining the text. So creating a rough outline of the text will also be helpful in getting to understand it more critically. By means of what? By locating the thesis statement, claims, and evidence, and then plotting this into an outline, you can see how the writer structures, sequences, and connects his or her ideas. So by this way, you'll be able to better evaluate the quality of the writing. Okay? Next, number 4, summarizing the text. Okay. So summarizing the text is similar to outlining in that you need to get the gist. A summary consists of getting the main points of the essay and important supporting details. Summarizing is a useful skill because you can better understand the reading if you can recognize and differentiate major and minor points in the text. Usually, locating the thesis statement and topic sentences are helpful in creating your summary. The supporting details in a paragraph and succeeding paragraphs may be used to develop or clarify the writer's point. Okay? Next, number 5 is questioning the text. Okay. Questioning the text involves asking specific questions. Specific questions on points that you are skeptical about or confused. Okay? This may be topics that do not meet your expectations or agree with your personal views. Alternately, you should also take note of things that you found impressive. Okay? So, the following questions may be asked. Okay? What type of audience is addressed? What are the writer's assumptions? What are the writer's intentions? How does the writer accomplish this? Okay? And so on and so forth. So those are the techniques to develop critical reading skills. Next is determining explicit and implicit information. So critical reading also means that you are able to distinguish the information that is clearly stated in the text from the ideas that are suggested. Okay? This will help you make inferences about what you read. Okay? So when we say information that is clearly stated, it is explicit, and when we say ideas that are suggested, it is implicit. Okay? So how can you tell whether something is implicit or explicit? As you have observed, explicit information is clearly written and explained in the text, so the reader will not be confused. Meanwhile, which ideas are implied? Implicit information is something that is implied, but not stated outright in the text. Because the idea is not written in the text, you need to use the clues in the text to make an inference on what you have read. Okay? An inference is a conclusion that you make based on explicit information and your reasoning and background knowledge. Okay? So that is explicit and implicit ideas or information. The difference between the two. Okay? Okay, next, defining claims. Okay? So whenever you read something, you find yourself looking for the writer's point or position regarding the chosen topic. And that point is also known as the claim or the central argument. And also, thesis statement of the text. This claim is what the writer tries to prove in the text by means of what? By providing details, explanations, and other types of evidence. As such, it is usually found in the introduction or in the first few paragraphs of the text. The claim is the most important part of the text. The quality and complexity of the reading depend on the claim because the claim defines the paper's direction and scope. The claim is a sentence that summarizes the most important thing that the writer wants to say as a result of his or her thinking, reading, or writing. Okay, so next is the types of claim. Okay, so the first one is claims of fact. Okay, claims of fact state a quantifiable assertion or a measurable topic. Okay, so they assert that something has existed, exists, or will exist based on data. They rely on reliable sources or systematic procedures to be validated. This is what makes them different from inferences. Claims of fact usually answers a what question. When determining whether something is a claim of fact, the following questions are useful. Number one, is this issue related to a possible cause or effect? Is this statement true or false? How can truthfulness be verified? Is this claim controversial or debatable? Okay. Next is claims of value. So claims of value assert something that can be qualified. Okay. They consist of arguments about moral, philosophical, or aesthetic topics. These types of topics try to prove that some values are more or less desirable compared to others. They make judgments based on certain standards on whether something is right or wrong, good or bad, or something similar. Okay? So claims of value attempt to explain how problems, situations, or issues ought to be valued. Okay? Next, claims of policy. Okay? So claims of policy posit that specific actions should be chosen as solutions to a particular problem. So you can easily identify a claim of policy because they begin with should, ought to, or must. Claims of policy because they defend actionable plans usually answer how questions. Okay? For example, does the claim suggest a specific remedy to solve the problem? Is the policy clearly defined? Is the need for the policy established? How does the policy solve the problem? Okay? So that's it. Okay. Next, context of text development. Okay. So, being a critical reader also involves understanding the text, or understanding that text are always developed with a certain context. A text is neither written nor read in a vacuum. It is, its meaning and interpretation are affected by a given set of circumstances. Okay? Thus, context is defined as the social, cultural, political, historical, and other related circumstances that surround the text and form the terms from which it can be better understood and evaluated. Okay? Knowledge of the text context helps in appreciating the text message more deeply. Okay? So another important thing is that the intertextuality. Okay? So it is another important technique in analyzing the context of a text development. Okay? So when we say intertextuality, it is the modeling of a text meaning by another text. It is defined as the connections between language, images, characters, themes, or subjects depending on their similarities in language, genre, or discourse. This is seen when an author borrows and transforms a prior text, or when you read one text and you use another one as a reference. This view recognizes that the text is always influenced by previous text and in turn anticipates future text. A text contains many layers of accumulated cultural, historical, and social knowledge, which continually adds to and affects one another. Thus, intertextuality becomes a dialogue among different texts and interpretations of the writer, the audience, and the current earlier cultural context. Next, hypertext. Okay. So, when we say hypertext, it is a nonlinear way of showing information. Hypertext connects topics on a screen to related information, graphics, videos, and music. Information is not simply related to text. This information appears as links and usually accessed by clicking. Okay? The reader can jump to more information about a topic, which in turn may have more links. This opens up the reader to a wide horizon of information or to a new direction. A reader can skim through sections of a text, freely jumping from one part to another depending on what aspect of the text interests him or her. Thus, in reading with hypertext, you are given more flexibility and personalization, because you get to select the order in which you read the text and focus on information that is relevant to your background and interest. Okay? Therefore, you create your own meaning out of the material. Okay? For example, you are doing research about the Philippine eagle. Okay? A quick Google search would lead you to a Wikipedia article. Information on it would include a picture and a brief written description. While reading about the Philippine eagle, you will also encounter links to its conservation status. Okay? So that's it. That is hypertext. Okay, so critical reading as reasoning. So becoming a good reader or a critical reader means that you are able to logically evaluate the claims of the writer. Any writer would want the reader to consider and possibly agree with the claims that he or she puts forward. In expository writing, assertions become the primary channel for a reader to assert to a claim. Okay. So when we say assertions, these are declarative sentences that claim something is true about something else. So simply put, it is a sentence that is either true or false. For example, the Sampaguita's roots are used for medicinal purposes such as an anesthetic and a sedative. The popularity of Sampaguita flowers is most evident in the places of worship. So that is assertion. Again, when we say assertions, these are declarative sentences that claim something is true about something else, or it is a sentence that is either true or okay, so there are four common types of assertion, which are classified according to the degree of certainty they can be judged as true or false. Okay? So the first type of assertion is a fact. Okay? So this is a statement that can be proven objectively by direct experience, testimonies of witnesses, verified observations, or the results of research. Because statements of fact can be double-checked for accuracy. There is general agreement about the truth they posit. Okay? For example, the Sampaguita's roots are used for medicinal purposes such as an anesthetic and a sedative. Okay. So this statement is a fact because it can be directly verified by experience or reliable research reports. Okay, so that is the first type of assertion. Next, convention. Okay, so a convention is a way in which something is done similar to traditions and norms. So conventions depend on historical precedent, laws, rules, usage, and customs. Thus, their truthfulness is verified by how commonly held definitions and beliefs are interpreted. Something to note about conventions is that they may sound factual due to their being derived from customs, but because they are socially accepted ways of doing things, they cannot be verified objectively by measurements. For example, the Sampaguita belongs to the genus Jasminum of the family Oliaceae. So this statement is a convention because it is based on a classification system made up by scientists and is acceptable, somehow acceptable to the scientific community. Okay? Next, opinion. Okay? So, opinions are based on facts, but difficult to objectively verify because of the uncertainty of producing satisfactory proofs of soundness. Okay. Opinions result from ambiguities. Okay. The more ambiguous a statement, the more difficult it is to verify, syempre. Okay? Thus, they are open to disputes. Okay? For example, the popularity of Sampaguita flowers is most evident in places of worship. Okay? So, that statement is an opinion because it is based on an observation that needs to be proven by studies and repeated observation. There are too many factors involved that makes explicit judgment difficult. Okay? Next, preference. So preferences are based on personal choice. Okay? Therefore, they are subjective and cannot be objectively proven or logically attacked. Okay? For example, Sampaguitas are the most beautiful and most fragrant of all flowers. So that statement is a preference because it says a lot about the type of flowers that the writer likes instead of objectively comparing the qualities of Sampaguitas to that of other flowers. Okay? So those are the four common types of assertion. Again, number one is fact. The second one is convention. Next is opinion. And the last one is preference. Okay, formulating counterclaims. So to be an effective critical thinker, it is not enough just to be able to identify claims and assertions. So the ability to analyze an argument is essential to understanding the text more deeply. But understanding the claim is not the only facet of the argument. You must also learn how to analyze the counterclaims and evidence provided by the text. So, being able to recognize and formulate counterclaims in reaction to an argument is a characteristic of a good critical reader. So, when we say counterclaims, these are claims made to rebut previous claim. Okay? They provide contrasting perspective to the main argument. Okay? So by being able to locate and provide counterclaims to an argument, you show a deep competence and familiarity with the writer's topic. It shows that you are examining different perspectives and not just possibly accepting the writer's claim. It shows that you have thoroughly considered the topic and are willing to engage different viewpoints from your own, thus remaining objective. And also, it will help you to clarify what your personal position is on the topic. Okay? Okay, so textual evidence. So to better evaluate the author's argument, you should be able to determine the evidence from the text. So this will allow you to validate the assertions of the author and your own counterclaims as a response to reading. So when we say evidence, it is defined as the details you given, or the details given by the author to support his or her claim. The evidence provided by the writer uh, builds or revealed, ano ba tawag dito ay? It reveals and builds on the position of the writer and makes the reading more interesting. Okay? So evidence is somehow crucial in swaying the reader to your side. A jury or judge, for example, relies on evidence presented by a lawyer before it makes a decision regarding a case, right? Okay? So, evidence can include the following, okay? Facts and statistics, okay? Opinion from experts, okay? Researchers, scientists, okay? And personal anecdotes, okay? So that is textual evidence. Okay, so that ends our discussion for today. So just wait for the second activity that I'm going to send to you through Messenger. Okay, thank you so much.